Live,
Yes,
Mr. Reeves.
Mr.
Welcome
Allen.
back.
Yep, here we are.
I guess casual Friday.
Yeah,
T-shirt.
absolutely.
So, welcome back to the Dummies Guide for Excuses. I am Jimmy Allen, your love and relationship coach, and you
I'm
have
Kevin
Kevin.
Reeves. Yep, I'm Kevin Reeves. I'm a coach. I've been coaching for the last couple of years and love getting into these conversations with Jimmy. We've been talking about just the many excuses that come out that keep us stuck. We've been doing this for several weeks now, but it's our Friday ritual.
I think
So
about
I
two
always do
months.
Fridays. Yep. So
Yeah,
what
we
are we
got a
doing?
good.
Yeah, go.
Yeah. So we're doing like when it giving up become on yourself become the norm. Ooh.
Yeah.
This came because gosh, a couple of conversations I've been having with clients and potential clients and friends, and I was just like, there was something I couldn't articulate at the time, and I was like, sort of, I guess, meditating on it, and then I was like, God, when did this person give up on themselves? And I was like, ooh, like that's a really hard question to ask oneself, and to like, I can already see asking that question to someone else, immediately that defensive will come up automatically because it's such a reality check. It is such a trigger. But a lot of people, specifically for me, like in dealing with people in relationships, it's automatically give up on the first sign of defeat or failure or a test or something, like immediately shut down. And but it's an opportunity for growth, and a lot of us miss those moments. Instead of growing, we just stay in that little rabbit hole.
Yeah, and let's like maybe clarify and like even like lay out like what does it look like to give up on yourself? Because I mean, it could go like as extreme as like
Right.
the very very extreme of like suicide, but it could be a few steps away from that as well. And how like and I think there's been so many times in my life where early on I remember being high school and middle school and those times where I'm giving up on myself and I'm not trying. I'm really trying to stay small, trying to stay hidden. I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
not draw attention to myself because I'm insecure. I'm embarrassed. I don't want people to notice me.
No.
And that's
Yeah.
a big form, a very common form of how people give up on themselves. But it
Right.
doesn't have to be like, that full extreme suicide way, but it
No.
also can just look, really like, oh, this person's just quiet. They're just shy. And that's what I got a lot is like, oh, he's just really mellow, you
Right.
know?
And a common thing that I hear, especially when in families, like people say, well, that's just the way we are. We've always been like that.
Right.
And so we automatically assume that our families won't do the work, won't put the effort in, won't make amends, won't act in forgiveness. And we just automatically cancel our family members out, or even our friends or relationships, and we just give up on them as if there's no hope, as if there is no like change. And I was sharing with Kevin right before this, a friend of mine, I was going to do this transformational course, and he said right before I was thinking about signing up, he said, "Well, they're going to ask you, family's going to come up," and I immediately got triggered. He was like, well, one of the things you're going to have to do is have a conversation with their parents. And I was like, oh, hell no. I ain't doing that. Like, there is no hope. I've tried everything. They don't want to change. There is nothing else that this course is going to do to show me that I not only change my family, but I'm part of the reason why the dynamic that way. I did not ever want to look at that, because I was sharing with Kevin, when I talk to specifically sometimes with men about doing work, like it's either immediately shut down or triggered because, like what we discussed, people don't want to find out what's on the other side of that.
Yeah. 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 It's really like it can be terrifying to like pick up that rock and find out like what is the deep dark secret. And I have that with my clients often, where people are ready to do the work, they want to jump in, they want to learn and grow in a certain area, but they're terrified at finding out like what's in there, what's in this box, what's this scary thing that might be my fault. Because if I had that on my shoulders or on my chest, it would change everything. It would make me feel so inadequate, or it'd be so overwhelming to like look at this fear. And so a lot of times we'll just kind of, if we just keep it buried, keep it under the rug, just pretend like everything's going fine, just smile and nod, everything's good, and it's so funny because it's often the people that like, I find that it's like kind of like the highest level are those really nice, like the sweetest, kindest, most friendly people. Those are the ones who are like really, really smiling hard to really compensate for the fear and the pain that's underneath it.
Yeah, just going back to that question we're going to ask, like, what is the main reason why people give up on themselves? And the majority of it is fear. And for me, like I was so terrified because this course was making me, and as a coach, you're asking your clients to be 100% responsible of how they show up or didn't show up in their relationship. And I was just like, first of all, I was in denial. I was just like, there is no way that I am responsible for any of these relationships or like my past, relationship. I was refusing to look at myself, like being entitled almost. And I was really terrified. And a lot of people, when I started to look, there was a lot of self-blame and there was a lot of self-shaming. And then as we would talk yesterday, when, sometimes that guilt, that self-shaming can lead to a lot of, abusive behavior, addiction, drinking, going out, a lot of sex and avoiding, because God knows I was avoiding. Even when I discovered how my own thoughts created my actions, created the way my relationships were, I was terrified to have those conversations. I was terrified to own up to those things. And a lot of my clients, even I have a client right now, terrified to call his son. I'm just like, listen, you don't have much time left in this world. You're living like you have 50 years to live. Like, this is now. I had wasn't a client of mine, but an old friend of mine, hadn't talked to her sister in almost 2 years because her sister didn't pay $100. And somehow I connected the fact that this is how she punishes relationships. If that person do one thing, didn't matter how extreme, little or small it is, she was immediately cut them off. It's their fault. And I said to her, I said, you have a pattern of somebody needs to be perfect for you. And if they're not, you immediately cut them off. And I said, I guarantee you trained your sister to cut her. I was like, I have a gut feeling your sister cut herself off before you did. And sure enough, no, she said, I said, well, when are you going to have that conversation with her? She goes, oh, I'll think about it. I was like, no. I said, you act like you have tomorrow promised to you. Like your sister can get hit by a bus and you've been holding on to a grudge for almost 2 years. She's like, well, I'll call her this Sunday after church. It's okay. Sure enough, her sister said, well, I knew you were going to be mad. I didn't have the money. So I was too afraid to call you and own it up to you. And I was like, see, like the people you have trained, we train people how to treat us, and they cut themselves off before they can either own up or make themselves available to us. They immediately cut ourselves off because how we train others.
Right. And it's so crazy how it becomes this thing of like, it really is that self-fulfilling prophecy where you're doing this thing. Oh, I can't do this because, people wouldn't like me, or I can't do this because people have to be perfect. And you're creating that in and of itself. And then it's funny too, because as you are doing that, you're doing the same thing to yourself. Like when you are like making people be perfect, a lot of times you have that same thing going on with you. You're
Yeah.
so hard on yourself, and you kick the crap out of yourself when you make a mistake. And if people could hear the dialogue that went on in our heads, it would be awful. I mean, it would just be so bad. I think I actually saw a show one time. It's that What Women Think. You ever see What Women Think with Mel Gibson?
Yes, it's been a while.
But yeah, he's like, he can just hear like all the self-doubt, all the self-talk, all the negative things about him, the amazing things about him. And like, it's like this gift that he has where he can hear this. And I think like so many times, like the thoughts that I'm thinking, I would be just mortified if people could actually hear me. Because, we all get in those funks or those stupid sometimes those thoughts just creep in and we don't realize it. But it's really like just being able to take control and notice them and like tag them of like, hey, wait a second. Is this helpful? Is this true? Is this something that's going to move me forward? And but we get stuck in those. And so it's really interesting as you kind of bring that up of not only are we pushing people away or training people how to treat us, we're also doing that same thing to ourselves.
Yeah. And speaking of that, like, I was sharing with you yesterday, like, how many times I've given up on myself, or if I remember the moment that it started to happen when I was in college. I didn't share this with you. I remember getting this, I was in acting at the time, and it was the first time we were doing Gypsy, and I got this role of the young tapper, and I didn't know how to tap, didn't really know how to sing, but I got the role anyway over this other guy who had done the role before, because I worked hard, I did research for this role or whatever, and so the guy, when he didn't get the role, he shamed me for it. Oh, so you think you're better than us? You think you're better than me? Is what he said. And ended up leaving the cast. And I was like, God, like I worked hard for this role, and I'm being shamed for working hard for it. And I remember the moment I was sharing with you when I started to become a coach. I had became the effective coach in this class, and it was, and I didn't share this with you, but it was my goal to be like the number one person. But when I finally got it, I was like, ooh, like I like I don't want the attention. Like I literally started shutting down. I stopped talking to other people. I didn't want other people to feel bad.
Right.
I literally I remember at the end of the course, like sitting in the back, like just like didn't want to be recognized, nothing. And the leader called me up, and she's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "I don't want the attention." She was like, she's like, "But you achieved something. You should be happy that you achieved." I was like, "Yeah." I was like downplaying. And I in that moment, I realized, God, I did that a lot because I carried so much shame with achieving something that I was making other people feel bad. And I didn't want that attention. And I had so much guilt and shame based off of some other experience, and got so many people walk around with that shame, like they're so good and talented, but they're holding themselves back based off of the circle. And I was just like, gosh, I have to break this cycle because it's keeping me going keeping me from going to the next level, because I'm literally playing small on purpose.
Right. Well, and it's like, kind of going back to that fear thing, it's that same thing. Like if people see how much shame I have, or, if it were to come out, like what does this put the spotlight on? Really, like a lot of times it's like this thing that we're asking you to do as a coach, or this thing that is triggering you, is really holding you back because you're just, the spotlight's on something. And, for me, it was like that class I was telling you about that, our professor would just like kind of shoot from the hip and say, hey, like just kind of do this counseling stuff with us and really get in your face and question you, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? What about that? How's that going for you? And like just being on the spot and having my own, like, why are you getting married? And why is this happening? I got married young. But it was like, he was questioning it. And that made me so intimidated because I had so little self-esteem that having anyone ask me about that triggered me so hard, and it made me shut down. And any goodness or any wisdom that I could have even gained from this guy, gone. Like there's not a chance that I was receptive to it because I was so afraid. And so that was the thing that, cause it was in front of people, and it was in front of him, and I respected him. And, he was like this cool like counselor who was also an NCAA basketball coach or a basketball ref, and awesome guy. So I'm like, I love this guy, and he's questioning me, and I don't like this. And so done. And so we do that a lot of times when we have, people who we respect, or maybe even people who we don't respect, but it's just, they look like they have it together, and I don't respect them. I don't like them, but they look like they have it better together than I do. And so it's really, it can be that triggering thing.
Yeah. I know we had this other question, like how many times have you given up on yourself? And I like that question because, specifically in relationships, and I find it sometimes in marriages where there's like one incident that happened and they'll give up over and over and over and over and over again. And it's like, this is a real opportunity to both of you to sit down and really look at, okay, if this keeps coming up for us, what are we refusing to look at? How we need to grow? Why is this triggering me? Where is this, like, what am I still holding on to? Like, why have this shame that I'm carrying on from another relationship, or even our parents' beliefs? You know what I mean? Like, and like going back to the first thing, like say, well, and I hear when I hear a couple say this, go, well, that's just the way he is. That's just the way she is. It's like,
yeah,
it really like makes me sad. It's like, no. Like you're both choosing to be that way. And you're both choosing not to like bring the things up to surface, having really a resilient conversation. And I'm curious of like, how do you and your wife deal with those type of things when you're triggered?
Well, I think over the years it's been like learning to talk about them straight up. But our breakdown, like 99% of our arguments are miscommunication. I say something, she assumes I'm saying this, and it's on, the same thing. And, it goes vice versa. And we've targeted that and gone, okay, cool. Like, if we're having an issue, let's figure out what are we actually saying here? Maybe we need to take a break. Maybe we need to revisit it later, whatever that is. But the one that came up for me when you said that was, how many times have we given up on ourselves? It's so much when you factor in like playing the martyr. When you're like, okay, fine, I don't care about that. It's cool. Just do whatever you want to do. And when you're doing that, it's not only giving up on yourself, it's being disrespectful to them, because you're not even like showing up in the relationship as like a participant. You're just like, I'm out. I don't care. You're right. Do whatever you want to do. And that playing the martyr is such a dangerous one, because a lot of times we do it, at least I do it, for the dramatic effect, to kind of like show that I'm like, but if they don't like grab onto it and go, oh, did you want that? Like, and like, if they don't like respond to it, it just goes under the table, and we just like, we forget about it. And so then it becomes like this thing that like, it turns into resentment. It just keeps, and it just piles on, because every time you throw out that martyr card and no one grabs it, you just kind of said what you thought, and that's what happened, and that's that. And so it can really build up into that resentment. And all of a sudden it comes out in this explosion. Well, you never do this. Every time I say this, and I'm like, well, you're playing the martyr. And so you weren't being honest. You weren't being genuine. And so that's something that like I've definitely learned over the years, of just really trying to nip that in the bud and say, hey, we're not doing this. We need to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, it was so funny. Like, you recall there's a podcast with Esther Perel, Where Do We Begin, I believe. And so, you can hear the couple talking. And so the husband goes, well, it'd be great, if you walk around in some sexy lingerie, I could just take you. And she was like, well, I never knew that. And he was like, well, you never asked. And then she was like, well, you have to tell her. Like you immediately give up on her that she doesn't want you, but she can't give you what you need if you don't say something. You can't, he automatically assume every single time, and he just gave up on the relationship or even initiating sex because he automatically assume making assumptions kills.
Yeah.
It making the assumption that she didn't want him in that way, it lost its attractiveness for her. And she was like, well, I'd have been happy to do that if I knew that's what you wanted. So,
Yeah.
so other questions like who loses? You give up on what you want. You're like, who loses, Kevin?
Yeah. Everybody. I mean, everybody loses. Like you think about
I'm
like
not sure
what you
you're on
have to
mute now,
offer.
Kevin.
What's that?
You're on mute.
No. Weird. No. Can you hear me now? No. Nope, not on mute. Anyway, I'm gonna keep talking. I don't know if anyone can hear this, but yeah, the whole thing is that if you like when you talk about who loses, it's everybody. Everybody loses. Great, awesome. Thanks, Laura. It's really cool. Like just when you talk about that, because you think about like how we show up. How we show up in life when you are showing up like 100% in your own skin with like 100% who you are, like your best self, it is amazing. It's an awesome thing to like you give so much. And so that's a question I often ask my clients is, like when you are showing up 100% you, fully confident, what is that gift that you get to give and offer to the world that is something that is so unique to you? And it's that really powerful thing that we each have, that ability and that amazing gift that we get to offer. And so I love that. I love that question because you think, okay, well, I'm missing out because I don't get to have like my full life, but everybody else misses out too. Everybody else who's around you, your job misses out, your relationships, the world. I mean, you think of like all these different organizations and nonprofits and groups of people who care and have gotten together, and these initiatives that take place. And when we see people standing up, like with even with like protesters of saying like this is wrong, we're taking a stand. When you're not able to do that, so much of the world misses out. The gifts, the ideas, the thoughts, the heart behind who we are, that is totally wasted. And so it's something that we really can really just think about as it's so easy to be just afraid. And, but you think about it, like I always think about it kind of like the analogy of like a bunch of kids playing a game. And you invite everybody, hey, we're going to play this game. And one kid's too scared or doesn't want to try it. And they sit in the back and they're missing out on the game. But we're all missing out on the game playing with you because you're too scared. And so we have that like feeling of just like hanging back and not being there and not being engaged. And we think, oh, we're protecting ourselves, but you're really standing out more. You're really drawing more attention to yourself despite your fear. And you're missing out on so much.
Yeah, and I love that question too. Like, who misses out when you give up on yourself, on your dreams, on love and relationship? It just it is a real detriment to the happiness and the fullness of what love can be in any relationship.
Right.
And when you are fully engaged and in love, whether it's romantic or friendship, like it is so powerful. And one of the things I notice is that you feel like you can conquer anything in your life. At least for me, I feel when I'm around people that I love so wholeheartedly, and we're bringing out the best in each other. Gosh, not only I feel so much joy, love, and compassion, but my cup is like filled up. Like we're giving, we're in the ebb and flow of love, and it's so beautiful when you see relationships or even a workflow. And I remember I don't know why this came to my mind when I used to be an actor, working with these guys on this film. Like there was so much love for the craft of what they were doing. Everything was working so quickly and flow. Hiccups it didn't seem like they were so together, and they didn't argue. It was just one thing after the other,
Right.
and it was like synchronicity to the utmost, and the film came out beautiful. And it's the same thing in relationships, like that synchronicity, that willingness, like what you said, with your wife or with any relationship, just like, well, let's look at this. What do we need to do? Okay, boom, boom, boom. Not bringing our stuff to the conversation, but having a willingness to like, well, let's look at how can we prove what do I need to work on for myself? What do I need to work on so we can bring our best selves, and it affects everyone around us because we're bringing our best selves, even in the smallest interaction, from Starbucks to walking the kids to the light. It brings so much light. It's called the butterfly effect. It ripples out into the world when you're bringing your best self.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Jimmy, as much as I love this conversation, I got to run because I got to take my kids to school, and I gotta go. Not give up on them. So,
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and leave your questions and comments below.
Yep. We'll see you next Friday.
All right. Bye now.
All right.